Well, today I am joined by the one and only Rob Biesenbach. Rob helps leaders become more persuasive and authoritative. He is a storytelling expert. And instead of me telling his story, I'm going to invite Rob to tell us a little bit about his story. Rob, welcome to the program.
Glad to be here, Dean. Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about the work that you do to help leaders become more persuasive and authoritative.
Well, I work with them to do basically three things: to put down the PowerPoint, learn to tell their story, and generally communicate like humans should, in human terms and empathetic terms, in ways that really connect with people.
So, what's the challenge that you run into with leaders? Okay, so we want to be able to be better storytellers. We want to be more connected. All of those things that I think any leader knows, right? They would tell you those are important things. But what do you find gets in the way of the leaders already doing those things? What's the challenge they have?
Yeah. Well, a big part of it is also presentation skills. So presentation skills, storytelling, and general communication skills. So I think the major roadblock really busy leaders have and senior executives is time. I mean, they just go from presentation to presentation to presentation. And, I worked for a long time as an executive speech writer, and these people put off meetings. They don't look at their material until the night before. They make changes. They're just focused on everything else they do. I think that this is good. I think the biggest problem is leaders who don't understand that communication is at least more than half their job. One of my speech writing clients years ago was a CEO, and he said, communication is about 65% of my job. And that means communicating with employees, customers, board of directors, relationships, branding, marketing, all of that stuff.
That's a great point. It's easy for us, any of us, when we're in a leadership position, to get maybe overly focused on the mission or the tactical things that have to get done or the problems that have to get solved. But kind of surrounding all of that is the communication side of it. And you are, so a few years ago, I went through NSA Illinois' Speaker Academy, and you shared your story about not only storytelling, but the work that you do in the books that you write, helping people tell better stories. And, that resonated with me, not only the power of storytelling, but also the use of the different mediums like books and video and speeches that we give and things like that. So, you operate workshops, you do keynote speeches, you do training. I mean, there's a lot of things that you do. If I am somebody that's, maybe currently a speaker, or maybe I'm exploring the world of doing more speaking, let's talk about storytelling. How does the skill of storytelling, regardless of the area of my expertise, help me to become more influential and more authoritative? What are some of the lessons that we need to know about storytelling?
Yeah. Well, on the stage, storytelling is absolutely essential to any good presentation. You need to start with story, end with story, and have stories in between. Study after study shows that if you want to break down walls with an audience, build trust, influence them to act, nothing beats a well-told story. So every speaker should be a great storyteller and really work on it and collect stories and deploy them, to use a fancy word. I've never used the word deploy before. Tell them.
I like the formality of deploy. It sounds it sounds maybe a little bit militaristic, even, like, right? Launch the stories,
Yeah, like I'm playing Risk.
So you said a phrase there: collect stories. How should we collect stories? And tell me more about collections of stories.
Well, let me first tell you how not to do it. And what many people do is don't Google stories. I think we have all seen, even professional speakers who trot out these stories that many of us and their audience members have heard countless times. And the classic one around NSA is the starfish story.
I thought you might go there.
Yeah. And it's just, it's just, storytelling is about connecting with people. And the way you connect with people is you be real and sharing your actual real life experiences. Stories are all around us. So speakers should work on their own stories that nobody else tells and nobody else can tell because they haven't actually experienced them. Some speakers are very good at faking it. And the starfish story, they can get a little choked up and, hit the timing just right. But these days, it just rings false with audiences. So be aware. I work with my audience in storytelling workshops is you got to collect stories, create a storytelling bank. You have to audit your experience and scour it for those stories that you can use in situations like this.
Walk me through maybe even your process of how you look for and collect and maybe even structure stories, because if we're not looking for something, it's hard for us to see it. And so first we have to be aware, and then we have to gather it and keep it. Or if you're like me, I'll forget it within about 3.5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to do something with it. Do you have a process for how you look for, collect, and use stories?
I do. And it's the same process I tell audiences is, number one, think about your key audiences. Who are they? So maybe you speak to engineers or sales executives or whoever it might be. Okay, what are their major issues, pain points, concerns that you want to help them with? Okay, so that's what you're looking for. You're looking out there anytime you are reading, watching the screen or in real life, or just going about your day, you look for examples or stories that illustrate that point. So for me, and a big part of it is knowing what you're all about. I'm all about storytelling, about using emotion to persuade, about presentation skills, about ditching PowerPoints. I'm always looking for stories surrounding that. And I find them everywhere. Bruce Springsteen, there was a quote, an interview done with him, and he talked about, my stories are often about factory workers or people who race cars in the street. You don't ever have to have worked or even stepped foot in a factory to get those stories, because they're not about the production line. They're about hope and sorrow and disappointment and betrayal and fatigue, all of these things that connect all of us. So that's a long way of saying just focus on your audience, focus on your key messages, and look for stories that illustrate those.
How do you suggest people keep them, right? Because you find yourself with sticky notes everywhere, or half-started notebooks here or there, or what are some things that you've found for people to help them create that library of stories that helps them?
Well, whatever works for them. I mean, some people can collect them in their head. Some people would like to create an Excel spreadsheet. Whatever it takes. What I do is I'm writing all the time and creating content. I write a monthly column for one of the associations I belong to. I write a monthly newsletter. I've written blog posts, and I'm writing speeches. So I've got and books. So I have all this material. I've got written documents. In fact, people will say, "Oh, I love this story from your book." And I'm like, "Wow, I don't even remember that." So I should actually read my own book again sometime.
So speaking of your books, how have books been helpful or significant for you in the work that you do, whether as a speaker or workshop leader?
Really helpful. I mean, when I set out to be a speaker, I was very deliberate about it. And it was like 12, 13 years ago. I said, I'm going to start with a book. A book will give me some kind of authority. And it does. Every expert out there these days, a book is as much a calling card as what a what an office used to be or what a business card used to be. It means you're established. It means you've done some thinking about your topic. And it doesn't matter whether you've sold one copy or 50 million, whether it's a vanity press or a Random House. The fact that you've collected your experience and wisdom in a book and had the wherewithal to actually get it all the way to publication, that says something. So I use the books to leverage, hey, I'm a speaker. I've got this expertise, and I come with books if your audience wants them. So the books were really a launching pad for my speaking platform.
So let's hear a little bit about your journey, your story. You said 12, 13 years ago, you begin this journey. You started with a vision of having a book and tying that to your speaking. Tell us about some of the lessons and some of your journey that maybe if somebody is starting out early in their journey, or maybe they're well into their journey, that can give maybe some insights on approaches or decisions or tools that could be helpful to others.
Well, I guess it starts with knowing what you're all about. You see these, people who want to be speakers who say, I want to be a speaker. How do I get booked? And the first question people ask in like these groups is, what are you speaking about? Who do you want to speak to? So I didn't want to become a speaker just to get up on stage and be a speaker. I mean, that was part of it. But it really started with, I believe, some really strong learnings and beliefs on the subject of smart communication. And I just happened to be, my business, all my career has been in communications and PR. So I happened to be a good communicator. And I did some acting. So I happened to be, have some skills on stage. So it really just brought all that together, the content and the stagecraft, to be able to put together a speaking career. Mm. The beginnings of one.
When you think back to the past decade plus, what have you found to be, in reflection, some of the most valuable or important decisions that you made on that journey?
Boy, one of the biggest things, I worked with a coach, learning to understand who my customer was, not my audience. I knew who my audiences were: senior executives, professionals in various functions, lawyers, engineers. They don't buy from me. My buyer, my customer my entranceway is senior to mid-level executives in communication, marketing, business development, or PR within large organizations. Generally, these are women about 30 to 45. And so it's really well defined. And again, this happens to be the base that I came from. I am a member of several communication and PR associations. So I speak to them. They're the one who bring me in and they say, oh, well, you should speak to our executives. You should speak to our engineers. You should speak to our lawyers. So that's my buyer. And if you think your buyer is everyone, you'll never get anything done.
Mm-hmm. So get really clear on the difference between who your customer is and who your audience is.
Yeah.
And then that helps you to separate. Your audience needs the stories you're collecting, but your business is aimed at helping your customer think of you as the obvious choice for the problem they're trying to solve with their association or with their team or whomever that is. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. If I'm looking for leads, I don't go to speak to an engineering conference. I go to speak to a conference full of communication and PR executives, for instance. Mm-hmm. And they see me and they say, oh, he's the guy.
Great. So I've known you from the, I guess, beginning of my experience with NSA Illinois. Tell me a little bit about how a community like NSA Illinois has been helpful for you, or how you view being a part of any type of membership. You're a part of other organizations in your industry. What should somebody think about when it comes to being a part of something beyond their piece of the business?
I think it's exposure to a network of other people in your same situation. And for me, a big part of it is knowledge. I'll tell you, I had a wake-up call during the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, everybody went virtual. And I was like, I got this. Because I had been doing webinars since like 2009, like since the dawn of the webinar era. People were still figuring it out.
You're a WebEx guy.
Yeah, WebEx and platforms that no longer exist and haven't for years. So I thought I had this, and I was doing well. I went all virtual, but all of my business, not just the speeches and keynotes, the short things, training, workshops went to virtual. And I was not fully prepared to make those workshops work in a virtual way. And so I did two things. I asked for help from NSA people. Is there an instructional designer who can help me out here? And I also went into this great resource that's called The Vault. The Vault contains videos of all the speeches and presentations done by all the professional speakers at the twice-a-year NSA meetings. And in that vault, I searched and I found how to make your workshops more interactive. And I came away with so many great learnings and tips that really accelerated my learning curve and got me back on track.
Well, and that's I think a great lesson for us is that we don't know when the world around us is going to shift, but what we can do is make sure that we have the resources and the contacts that when that shift occurs, we can do what you did. I mean, you demonstrated a proactivity of saying, okay, well, I'm not going to sit here and wish the world was different than it is. There's something I can do. I can reach out to the contacts that I've developed, so that's part of the well that we dig is those relationships. And then I'm going to look for resources like the NSA vault of all of the experts that, each of us are building our business on the shoulders of those who have come before us. And the great thing about what I found with NSA and the spirit of Captivate is this desire to help others along the way with the things that we've learned. And so I think even the lessons that you've shared in our conversation today, but those moments of coaching, the willingness of members to have a phone call and to support each other, I think really helps out in what can be a bit of a solo adventure or a lonelier business. And so that's a great way for us to think about the resources that are available beyond just good relationships and encouragement. Any other, go ahead.
Oh, that's just happened time and again where I, have a problem, I have an issue, and I put it in the Facebook group and people say, call me. I have conversations with people with top flight speakers who will give me 10, 20, 30 minutes of their time generously to answer an important question I have. So it's great.
Awesome. So you regularly put out content and you share insights on stories. If somebody wanted to be in connection with you or follow you, where would you direct people?
Well, if you can spell my name, you can find me because there's only one Rob Biesenbach. If you Google Rob Biesenbach, last name Biesenbach, and it's probably flashing on the screen here as well or in the description. If you Google me, you will find my LinkedIn page. I write a lot there several times a week. You can find my website. You can look at my blog. You can go to my YouTube channel, all that stuff.
Awesome. Rob, thank you so much for taking time to share your story, your insights, your tips for us in the speaking community. And thank you for being a part of our group here of NSA Illinois professionals that are working to improve their speaking skills and build better speaking businesses. So thank you so much for today, Rob.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, Dean.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.